I'm Denton Davidson for Gold Derby, here with Colm Bairéad, director of The Quiet Girl, Ireland's entry for Best International Feature at the 95th Academy Awards. And Colm, I'll just start by asking, how does it feel to represent Ireland this year? And what do you hope to, represent about Irish filmmaking on the world scale?
Well, I mean, it feels amazing. It's a real honor to have been selected by the Irish Film and Television Academy to represent Ireland. And to be, in the company of such amazing films. Like, this year is such a strong year in this category. Yeah, we're just incredibly proud of the fact that this is not only an Irish film, but it's also an Irish language film. And historically, the Irish language has been underrepresented in Irish cinema. It's, as you may know, Irish is like the official language of Ireland, but it's actually a minority language, and it's on UNESCO's endangered languages list. And like, prior to sort of like the last few years now, we've seen some Irish language films being made. But before that, you could kind of count on one hand the amount of Irish language feature films that had ever been released theatrically here in Ireland. So yeah, we're just very proud that we have a film that's speaking to the world, I guess, in our own native tongue, and that's being embraced by audiences worldwide. And it's also, it's a film that's done really well here in Ireland at the box office. So like, people here are very much behind it, and it's kind of brought about this new sort of conversation about the language and about our own connection to it. And I think people are really behind the film because of that it's people are hoping that the film can sort of travel far beyond our own borders, which has been the case so far. And now just being part of this conversation in terms of the Oscar, this particular category, it's great. There's never been an Irish language film shortlisted or nominated for this category. So yeah, we're very excited to be here.
And you mentioned it's doing well. It's broken box office records. I think 4 times more than the previous record holder in terms of Irish language films in Ireland, in the UK. And just to put it in perspective, I think less than like 40% of even people in Ireland are fluent in the Irish language. So this is really like bringing it on another platform. But just to get into the story, it's set in rural Ireland in 1981, and it's about this quiet, neglected girl. She's sent away from her dysfunctional, overcrowded family, and sent to live with these foster parents for the summer, and her whole world sort of opens up in that summer. Can you talk about that world, where you were filming? It's just sort of it looks like a magical place on screen. Just the outdoor sequences, like Ireland in 1981, just seems beautiful visually.
Yeah, it's certainly a kind of a character in the film. I think the various environments that we filmed in. Yeah, I mean, it is, as you said, it's a story that's set in 1981. So it's on one hand, Ireland is still very beautiful, and if you go to Ireland, you'll see places like that. But Irish society has changed hugely in that time. Like, that's essentially my own lifetime. Like, I was born in 1981. I was born in the year that this film is set, and I kind of feel like within my lifetime, I've sort of straddled these two Irelands, like what we once were to what we now are, which is a very progressive and kind of forward-thinking and largely secular society. And I guess like the impulse to make the film was born of that understanding. That I kind of came from a different Ireland in a sense, and I've lived through this big change. And also born of a particular interest in the stories of children. All of my this is my first feature film, and all of my short dramas prior to this have always centered on young protagonists. And as a country, we haven't always lived up to the promises of our own proclamation of independence. Which is to cherish all the children of the nation equally. That we failed our younger citizens in many ways since we gained our independence over the last kind of 100 years. So it was born of an impulse to kind of give a child from that old Ireland sort of center stage, and to give her agency and give her a voice. And I had also become a father just somewhat 2 years before I encountered this story. So I was, it was kind of came from a place also of almost like a paternal instinct of wanting to cherish this young child who existed in this piece of fiction by Claire Keegan, and just sort of railing against that society that used to that didn't value children perhaps in quite the same way. And that was just really potent for me at that time, because I'd just become a father, and so you had this understanding, this very visceral understanding of what a child needs and what a child deserves. And so it was certainly a response to all of those things. And I should just say, like, as I said, I just alluded to there, our film is an adaptation. It's based on a long short story called Foster, written by Claire Keegan. And Claire is one of our absolute best authors at the moment. Her most recent work was shortlisted for the Booker Prize. So, like, again, that was just an extraordinary privilege and an honor to be given access to that, what I consider to be really precious material. Like, this story is the story Foster. Young people in Ireland will be relatively familiar with it because it's part of the school curriculum as well. So it's a much loved story. And so yeah, it was kind of a daunting but also a real privileged kind of position to be in to get to adapt it.
And you mentioned it's your first, feature film that you've directed. You've done some other things, but it's also the first film for Catherine Clinch, who stars in the film. She's fantastic. So what was that like, being a new feature film director working with a star of the film that's never done a movie before?
Well, I guess because, like, as I said, all of my short dramas had sort of centered on young people. I was kind of familiar with that process, of working with younger actors, who are, like, almost always, unknowns, people that you've just found or whatever, that don't have any acting experience or whatever. But Catherine was extraordinary. It took us 7 months to find her. So we would have begun casting like pre-COVID. So we were seeing like hundreds of young people just in open auditions. And then COVID came along and we had to like shift to self-tapes. And, again, like because it's an Irish language story, you need someone who's fluent in the language. So luckily there is like a network of primary schools in Ireland that are entirely Irish language based. Now they are in and of themselves, they're a minority within the education system, but they do exist. So there are these schools where you have children going to school every day and they do all of their subjects in the Irish language. So they're all fluent in the Irish language, which is a real beacon of hope for the future of the language. But we basically use that network. We put out a call to those schools for anyone who'd be interested in auditioning. And we got a self-tape in one day from Catherine Clinch. And yeah, it was just incredible. Like, she just had this innate understanding of the character. And she understood that this was a young girl who had learned to sort of push all of her emotions inwards. Which to me that's the most interesting kind of performance for a camera to observe, which is a character that's withholding in that sense. And she seemed to have this innate understanding of that and of the camera's sort of ability to witness that kind of performance, And even though she'd never acted in front of a camera before, she just had this sort of willingness to allow the camera to see her. So yeah, it was extraordinary. And she kind of set the tone for the whole film. We were, in a strange way, we were all kind of following her, it was really quite extraordinary. And there's something about her. She kind of has like this wise soul, she feels like she's been here before in some sense. So it was never in a sense, it was kind of like dealing with an adult in a strange kind of way. It was, she's just a remarkable young woman,
Well, Colm, it's an incredible, heartwarming film, and thanks for spending time with me to talk about The Quiet Girl. And best of luck with upcoming Oscar nominations, everything else in between, and enjoy the time that you have.
Thank you so much, Denton.